How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to 2A News Now. I hope everybody's doing well, and I appreciate everybody that takes time to watch my videos. When I made a video last week about the ATF getting rid of the Biden-era zero-tolerance policy, I mentioned in that video, and also received quite a few comments, that those FFLs that were revoked under that zero-tolerance policy should be able to reapply for their licenses, and that also the government should help them out reopening the shops and forgo the price of an FFL for a period of time. And now we're finding out at least part of that is coming true. The ATF is inviting former FFLs that lost their licenses during the Biden administration and the zero-tolerance policy to reapply for their licenses. And the Biden administration say they went to the zero-tolerance policy so they could rein in what they called rogue gun dealers. But not only did they get rid of some rogue gun dealers, hundreds and hundreds of FFLs had their licenses revoked because of just minor paperwork errors, which in the past, if that happened, they would just be given a warning and it would be used as a teaching moment. And here's the other thing, the hundreds and hundreds of FFLs that their licenses were revoked, if they all were so-called rogue gun dealers, why weren't they charged with anything? Because they weren't rogue gun dealers. So if you remember back to February 7th, 2025, President Trump issued an executive order called basically protecting Second Amendment rights. So the new ATF reviewed the 2021 policy called the Advanced Regulatory Enforcement Policy, which we all affectionately know as the Zero Tolerance Policy. And in May of this year, the ATF revamped the whole policy, where of course zero tolerance doesn't exist anymore. Here is what the ATF had to say to those who lost their licenses during the Biden administration. Federal firearm licensees that surrendered their licenses, had their licenses revoked, or had their applications denied based on the zero tolerance policy can reapply. And the ATF will review new applications and all pending licensing matters under the new administrative action policy. Individuals who have a question about an earlier decision or general inquiries are urged to contact their local ATF field office. ATF is committed to fairness and transparency in its regulatory enforcement program and to protecting Americans' Second Amendment rights while also protecting public safety. I mentioned earlier that most of these FFLs that had their licenses revoked were not rogue dealers, because if they were, the government would have charged them with a crime. But also, if they were rogue dealers, would the government offer them to reapply for their FFLs? Of course not. Of course, now they will find out when they go over these new applications that some of them did lose their licenses because they were rogue dealers. But it's just crazy to think during the Biden administration, the ATF revoked hundreds and hundreds of licenses of FFLs for minor paperwork errors, like forgetting to put their FFL number on the paperwork, or superimposing the serial number of a firearm on the application. They lost their FFL licenses because of trivial bullshit. They weren't trying to buck the system. They weren't trying to break the law. They were just honest people trying to make a living selling firearms using their FFL. But the Biden administration did what they know best, and they lied about these FFLs. The mainstream media took off with it, saying there were record numbers of FFLs that had their licenses revoked because they were rogue dealers. And of course they weren't. And I hope a lot of these FFLs that lost their licenses are able to get their licenses back and open up their gun shops once again, so they can serve the people of their cities and states, so they can use their Second Amendment rights to be able to purchase a firearm, to be able to purchase ammunition. But like I said at the beginning of the video, the government also needs to help these people out by forgoing the price of getting an FFL for a certain period of time. And I think the government should reimburse them for lost profit. And once these shops start opening, I hope you guys go back to them and give them your business, because they deserve it. They've always been there for us, and now we need to be there for them. I'd really like to hear you guys' comments in the comment section down below. What you think of the ATF offering these FFLs that lost their licenses to zero tolerance to reapply for their licenses. And do you think the government should help them out in any way? And as always, I appreciate everybody that supports the channel. not only by watching the videos, but also taking the time after they watch the videos to like, share, and subscribe and hit those post notifications. I'm very, very grateful that you do so. It helps the channel out and it helps it to continue to grow. And I invite all of you to come back and watch my next video.